it was a great experience in so many ways. I learned so much while I was at school there, and I kind of devoted myself to the theater program. I also was involved in the speech department. That they decided not to have a speech team that competed in speech tournaments and that kind of thing. Instead, we wrote speeches that were then put into a catalog and then sent out to area Rotary clubs and church groups and all kinds of places. And people could hire you to come out and give a speech at their event. And I had a speech scholarship, and so I had to maintain that. I was sent off every other weekend. I was going away to give a speech somewhere, which
Did
was
you get paid at least?
No,
it was a condition of the scholarship.
It was part of the deal. They would get this speaker to come.
Oh man!
So I was speaking at Exeter High School one day.
Right.
And the Nebraska Center for Women in my hometown is where the women's prison is. I had a really wild experience going back there and speaking because my mom had worked at that prison when I was 11 after she divorced my dad. And so she worked all these shifts that, since she was a new employee, she had to work all the holidays. But you could take your kids to work on the holidays. So I spent Easter and Mother's Day and all these holidays at the prison. Nebraska's a very homogenized. It's very white. You know what I mean? Especially it's changed. NAFTA changed things a little bit. But when I grew up in Nebraska, there was all white people everywhere. There's no minorities. But at the prison, it's different. And so that's really where I first heard Al Green and Curtis Mayfield music.
Really? Okay.
Women would have little turntables outside and they were playing Let's Stay Together. The first time I heard Let's Stay Together was at the prison. And I'm like, what is that song?
Wow.
Because Nebraska radio is so white. It was just Rush, REO Speedwagon, just certain white rock bands were the only thing that were played. And no R&B. When I first moved to Kansas City, I freaked out at the radio. I was like, what? What is this? Not the way radio is in Nebraska. But I had to go back to that prison my senior year in high school, in college, my senior year in college. So it's 1985. I'm going into this prison to give a speech, and my speech is how to feel good about being yourself is the speech. I'm giving this in a prison, and I go to this room, and it's empty. There's no one in there. And this guard, she's very stiff. She's like, well, all the women are they're in the other room practicing. They have a choir, and they're going to go out on tour to raise money to build a church. And right now they're practicing their music. Maybe I could go in there and talk them into coming in here and hearing your speech. And she leaves the room, and I'm, oh, this is great. She's going to talk them into coming to hear me give a speech. How to feel good about me yourself. Where am I at? And then the door's wide open, and these
so funny.
It's 15 women march into the room. There are 14 black women and one white woman, and they sit down and they go, "We heard this was funny. Make it funny." and I mean, I'm like, oh my God. So I rewrote my speech in my mind really quick, and I had recently gotten arrested by the police. So I threw that story in, to try to
know your audience, yeah.
So a little bit of street cred, I got to give myself something. I gave my little stupid speech about how to feel good about being yourself to these women in prison, and this woman looks at me and she's like, "You're Mannix's son." My mom, they called her Mannix because it was the name of a detective show in the 70s, and it sounded like and she's like, this woman recognized me from when I used to come with my mom.
Wow.
On Bring Your Kids to Work Day or whatever.
What?
She recognized me, and it freaked me out. And she's like, wait a second here. You just performed for us for half an hour. We now have to perform for you. we need to give the gift back. And then stiff guard was like, Mr. Manning, you do not have to stay here for this. And I'm like, no, I want to be here. And the women all got up and formed like a half circle around me. And for 30 minutes, they sang all their gospel songs that they'd been practicing that night.
Oh,
this,
wow.
That's what's up.
This woman had like these thumbnails that were like 3 inches tall, and she directed them with her thumbs, you know, and they were great. They were singing in like harmony, and I was crying. I was like, I can't believe I'm in a prison getting the gift of these women singing to this.
Serenaded.
It was one of those crazy experiences I would not have had not the Doan Speakers Bureau existed.
That's incredible. Mark, what would you think? Can I try and find a point where we kind of stop talking about Doan and you start telling this story and make that, we could include that as the start of the show? Would that be okay?
Yeah, right. You want me to tell the story over?
No. You
You're
told it
gonna edit
perfectly.
it? Okay, you're going to edit it, right?
I'll edit it. I can send it to you ahead of time. So
That's fine. You can put anything. You can put that story in. I'd love it if you did.
At some point, Mark, I really am interested in the birthday stripper singing Telegram.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yes, that is interesting.
No.
Let me give you a second. This is the Long Play Listening Party. I'm Howie Howard. Nate Holt, Royce Diamond. Our guest is Mark Manning. You probably know him from KKFI. You also might know him from acting and gardening around Kansas City. But
Or stripping.
yeah, Mark, you want to tell that story?
Okay, so I when I first moved to Kansas City, right off the bat, I auditioned for a play at the Unicorn Theater, and I got cast in a play. And I immediately met all of the staff there, and the production stage manager was like, hey, why don't you hang around and help me with the next play? And I ended up working on 18 shows there. I did every job. I learned how to do so many jobs, and I stage managed a non-equity musical premiere of a world premiere of a show that was done by people from Second City in Chicago, with people in wheelchairs and blind and deaf actors. I'll tell you some stories about that sometime that are hilarious. But working at the Unicorn, of course, it's not going to pay my bills. So, like a lot of people, I had to get other jobs. It seems like theater people would have like 5 part-time jobs and add them all together. Mm-hmm. One of mine was doing singing telegrams for a place called Mabel H. Singing Telegrams. And they had a whole bunch of different characters that people could order. And you had to show up and do it in costume and do your thing and get out, get your money and get out. And my favorite one to do was the Kissing Bandit. You got to wear this mustache and this cape and sing this Elvis-inspired song, "It's now or never, my lips can't wait," and you're trying to kiss the woman, and then put these lips on her head or on her neck, and then leave. You know, I remember I had to go to a KCK beauty parlor down on, I don't know where it was, I can't remember where it was, but this white woman had this afro that was so big I couldn't get the ribbon around her head. It wouldn't work. But one of the characters was a nerd strip. You had to go in and do a nerd strip. And you basically were a nerdy character that stripped down to basically underwear, you know. But had to do it with like tripping and getting your pants caught and falling over and trying to get your legs out of your pants and that whole thing. But they actually had strippers too that worked for Mabel H. And during Christmas time, they had these Santa strippers that would go out and strip, and they had male and female. And the male Santa stripper, I didn't have to do much with him. Usually they sent a female with him. They would send me with the female stripper Santas. But the male stripper Santa, he was pretty sexy looking. He had a fake tan and he was muscular and stuff. But the minute he opened his mouth, it was like so I hate to say it, but he sounded so gay. It was like the illusion was ruined. It's like, don't talk, Santa, don't talk.
No.
I had to go out with the female Santa.
Oh no.
So we got called out to this place like about a mile and a half outside of Independence. And it was this like Saturday night thing. And the stripper that I went with, she was one of the main strippers that worked at Maple H, and she had a big spider tattoo on her left shoulder, like a web and a spider. She was very shy. And we're driving out in the country, and I can see at the top of the hill this house. It has, I kid you not, about 100 motorcycles parked around it.
Oh,
That's where we're going, you know? And I'm like, oh dear, my job is to go in and like set it all up, like take in the boombox, make sure it's ready to get played, and find the birthday person and situate them, and then do this.
Take in the boombox.
and then I had to like do an opening song where I'm like, today is your birthday, blah 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 blah, and then I had to say, and here's your present, and it unwraps itself, you know, and then she would appear, start stripping. As she would throw her stuff around the room, I would go and get it and collect it, so it was all preserved. So we walk into this place, and it's not very friendly looking at all. It's like really scary. And there's like this coffee table with a giant pile of marijuana and a big pile, just like very green. And these guys are looking at me like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Where's Jim? We're here for Jim. It's Jim's birthday." This guy goes, "Are you queer?" And I go, "That's not the point now, is it?"
No.
Jim, it's your birthday. And I just went plowing into it, you know, and sang the little birthday song. And then here's your present, and it wraps itself. And she shows up and does her thing. And then the biker guys are like, "Here, come over here, kid." And I'm like rolling joints and handing them to me. And it's like, somehow she did her thing. We got the boombox and got our money and took off. That's kind of the gig. Get in there, do it, get the money, and leave as fast as you can. Because, you know, there's other things that we had to do in other places. We'd have to do that. We'd be changing our costume while we're driving from one location to the next, and it was it's a very humiliating job. But it also teaches you how to like take control of a room, get in there, take control of a room, and then get out.
Right.
And it helped me a lot with my work in middle schools.
Okay, all right, duly noted. Well, any aspiring teachers are, currently going through.
But when you like, I found out early when you go to a middle school and work, if you walk into the room kind of scared, the kids will smell it on you, and it's just like you're doing, you know, it's like try it, come back tomorrow. You know, it's like it's not a good way to start.
It's like they smell it just like a biker gang, I assume.
Yeah, that was
similar in that way.
Oh my god, that was really, you know. And what was really bad is if you were accompanying a stripper who was not a good stripper, that was also bad. I had to go with a friend of mine who's a really great actor, but he thought he could make extra money doing this telegram thing. So we went downtown it was like on a Tuesday at 10 in the morning for some corporate event. And he had to strip, and he stripped to the Talking Heads Burning Down the House, which was and the people asked for a refund. He like apparently stripped down to like regular cotton white underwear. That was like the reveal. And apparently his underwear wasn't clean, you know, like.
Yeah, I would have been asking for a refund as well. I think that was very disappointing.
You know, and I didn't know. I mean, I respect this person as an actor, but
well, I mean, and is there a reason he left his tidy whities on? That's the other. That's another question. if they're already dirty, maybe he shouldn't have taken them off.
No, he had no clue what he was doing. He shouldn't have been doing it. It's an art form. He's like, it's not good. Not good.
Right, almost like it's too method, right? Like, no, this is there's a script here that we need to follow. There's expectations we need to fulfill.
Nero and Raging Bull stripping for you. It's the older, fatter version of it. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, that was not a good day. That was hard. But
very interesting.
Theater is one of those art forms that is so I realize how scary it can be, and how putting yourself out there on the edge in a way, and it's nice when it works out.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go into that a little bit, because that it seems like that is a lot of your background, and coming up with original productions and I guess writing and all that stuff. Is that
and managing it?
Right.
We when we were doing the stuff at Cafe Lulu, and then that grew into its own life outside of Cafe Lulu, and we tried to produce plays in non-conventional spaces. We weren't really doing them in theaters per se. I had worked a lot in different theaters in Kansas City, but this was like a place to blow it up and try it out in a whole different way. And also the whole idea of performance art is sort of like creating a space. Everybody's acknowledging that we're in that space, that it's being created in that space, and that's not being
right.
It's not the illusion, but it made for a lot of really crazy stuff. And there was a gay bar on Main Street called the Club Cabaret, and the owners of the place, they were Big John and Little John, and they came to Cafe Lulu. And one guy was big and one guy was little, and they came to Cafe Lulu and they saw our show, and we want you to do the show at our bar. And I told them no, because I couldn't do 2 shows a week. But as we developed our stuff, people would try out material that would end up accumulating. They tried a scene, and then they tried another scene, and before they knew it, they had a whole play, or they had a whole concept. And we just kind of took the cream of that work at Cafe Lulu and made that into an even more curated show that related to each other. Plus, we found all these diverse LGBTQIA voices that were wanting to tell issues about, dealing with the issues of the day and political things. And so we were doing shows at the Club Cabaret, which was this big gay bar that had this huge dance floor that we made into a stage, and then they had another stage and a huge video monitor. So we would do multimedia productions, and the bar let us use it all for free. We didn't pay. We would be bringing in an audience.
That's great. Yeah.
Most of the gay bars, the crowd would come at 11 o'clock at night, but we were bringing in an audience at 8 o'clock at night, so they could sell drinks to another 150 people that they wouldn't normally have there. It was a real non-traditional audience. It was a very mixed, sometimes more women than men, and then all ages. And unfortunately, in the gay bar, we couldn't have the under 21 crowd that we had at Cafe Lulu, because we had a huge group of high school kids that would come to our shows that couldn't get in at the bar, which was really unfortunate. But we created whole shows, and Ron McGee, who went on to create late night theater, is one of the original founders of Big Bang Buffet with myself and a friend of mine, Janice Woolery. And we were doing, we created a show called the Stan and Friend Fundy Show, which was this whole story of this Christian fundamentalist Vegas-style lounge act. And it was a musical, and it was very hilarious and very satire-rich. Ron was doing all kinds of crazy ideas with characters, and he was just starting out. And we would do the censorship stuff with Anne also during Culture Under Fire. One year during Culture Under Fire, we did a show called Birmingham's Book Burning Barbecue, because there was a local street preacher named John Birmingham. He was burning books right outside the school board offices. He would set up a big fire and just throw books in there and burn them. And he was a very confrontational guy, real get in your face kind of guy. And he was currently burning this book called Annie on My Mind, which was this lesbian love story that was high school book for girls. A great book, actually. But anyway, so we wrote so we created a show called Birmingham's Book Burning Barbecue. On the poster was him barbecuing books on a grill. And just for the fun of it, I put him in the program as our very first performer in the show. Just for the hell of it, I did that, on a whim. But then the night of the show at the Club Cabaret, he came and protested our show with members and he brought members of his church along. So outside the gay bar are all these church folk with signs up, And so I'm like, wait a second, this is perfect. He's on the program to be our first performer. Let's go ask him to be our first performer. I mean, it's a censorship show. I mean, the whole idea of free speech is that everybody gets free speech, right? So we went out there and I said, would you like to come in and have 10 minutes on stage? And he was like, oh my God. He was like, this opportunity to go inside the cave of sin to save souls. So he was more than ready to come in. And we set it up with the audience too, that they had to give him 10 minutes, that they had to be respectful and give this performer 10 minutes like anybody else in the show. But he came in and did his 10-minute thing. And then he only spoke for like 5 minutes. And I go, you have 5 more minutes. And he's like, well, I go, what if we do Q&A? And he's like, okay. So he took a cordless mic in the audience and people asked him questions. It was a farce because we had all these lesbians in the audience. And they were like, are you wearing polyester socks? And he's like, well, I might be. And he's like, that's against the Bible. You can't have blended fabric in your...
What?
Did you have shellfish for dinner last night? That's against the Bible. It was like this crazy moment.
Oh my goodness.
It was also like this incredible experience of...
That is incredible.
Yes. Art imitating life, where you're like, you're making fun of somebody and then they actually show up and they're in the show and they don't even really get it. He never really totally got the whole idea of what we were doing, but we did allow him to have 10 minutes of his own self in the show. So it made it really authentic. Like people thought we planned it all out and it totally just happened that way.
Mm.
But
wow.
There are a lot of things like that we experienced with a lot of those shows during those years too, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun to do. A lot of work also, but experience.
Yeah, you must be a very, very organized person because you've got an extensive resume of things that you've done, and they all seem like really massive undertakings.
Yes.
How do you balance all that?
Well, and that's an interesting question, Royce, too, because I know, and I don't know. I mean, you don't have to get into it, Mark, if you don't want it, because I know it's a big life change for you. But I know that you're stepping away from that, the gardening that you had been so involved with for so long. But it's because you explained it. It's part of how you have to take care of yourself right now.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm having a real struggle with this whole decision. I'm standing by my decision. It hurts really bad because it's so much of my...
Yeah, I would imagine.
Like it's literally, we get caught up in things and they become our identity. And they're not really our identity. They're just one of the things that we do. But all of us are trying to figure out, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I, and I never planned on doing this garden project. I was actually working at the Midland Theater and I organized a Big Bang Buffet show and we did it as a benefit for this organization in KCK. The woman that ran that organization ended up becoming my boss, and I made a connection with her. She invited me to come work with her. I gave up everything in my life and just changed it all, totally, completely changed my whole life. Started working in KCK schools doing a garden program. You know, 23 years later, I'm like, whoa, and the last couple of years, COVID was really difficult. We've lost a lot of our funding. And I'm just tired of trying to find the funding for it. And it's also not my strength to do it, to do the funding part. And
yeah.
I'm just like, I want to leave everything in a really good place. And the schools are going to have to figure out how to take care of their own gardens. And I've taught teachers over the years how to do these workshops, so they should be able to do them themselves. But regardless, I'm going to move on from it, and maybe get
23 years.
Yeah, that's
Well, and weren't you doing a fundraiser, and were you needing volunteers still for a project that you have coming up?
One of our elementary schools, it's called M.E. Pearson Elementary in KCK. It's on 11th Street.
Yes.
And that was our first garden we ever built 22 years ago. And we're still using that same garden. Most of the other schools, we've rebuilt the gardens over the years, but that school has never gotten to be rebuilt for one reason or another. It's also in a very bad, shady location. There's the big, huge trees all around the garden. There's a much better location that we now have access to use. So it's crazy how these things work. And I don't know why it's the way it is, but the only way to really get funding to build a garden was for me to personally do a GoFundMe. And so I did a GoFundMe, and we raised $7,900 in 5 days on the GoFundMe. And we're able to, so this week I've bought all of the lumber and the soil and fabric. I've bought all those pieces. And then on May 9th, 10th, and 11th, we have over 30 volunteers scheduled for May 9th and May 10th, also on the 11th. And we're going to build this brand new garden for this school, and then plant it on Thursday, the 12th.
Okay.
But that's a good way to leave a program when you've tried to make it as good as you possibly can, because we've built new gardens now at 5 of our schools, and we're going to plant all these gardens, and I'm going to get them up and running, and then I'm going to be bringing in volunteers to water them over the summer, and I'll gradually pull myself away from it, and then find out what I do next with my life, because I really don't know what I'm going to do next. It's like I have to shut one door before I can open the next one. That's kind of how my life works.
Right.
But I'm having just to be honest with you, I'm having lots of emotion about this whole thing, because it's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah.
That was a big decision. I mean, it sounded like it was, it definitely weighs on you. But I think, anybody who can empathize with it understands. I mean, you're kind of like a battery. I mean, if you're all the way down to to low, you have to recharge, and if you can't recharge, you can't be a whole lot of help to other people. So
right. I ultimately, what kind of an example am I setting? Because kids will say, I will tell kids, I haven't gotten paid for the last 2 years, and I'm still doing this job.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of a message am I sending with that? And I'm not saying that. I'm always trying to tell kids that you don't have to get paid for everything you do. Certain things we do in our community, because we want to build our community, and we don't want to get paid for those. We're going to get paid for those because our neighborhood's going to be better by the work we're doing in our community, and that's invaluable, But at the same time, I don't want to have that resentfulness or whatever. And I'm like a one-man band. This whole program I've had to kind of do by myself, and it's very physical, and it's crazy because we created all these workshops where we actually cook food and create food in the classroom of the school. and I was doing about 400 workshops a year, and working with 1,500 students. And so, like, I would do a salsa.
That's incredible.
I would do a salsa workshop, or we would do it 6 times a day. Like, you do a workshop, you have to clean everything up in like 3 minutes and reset it and do it again, then reset it and do it again. And basically, you work from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. You've worked with like 150 6 meters, and put up hundreds of tomatoes, like, because we would make salsa as a group of students and teachers together. And that was just one of the things. We would like harvest all of our sweet potatoes, and we make sweet potato French fries in the classroom while we talked about the history of the sweet potato. Or usually there was always some kind of food element. I feel like all of my theater background and restaurant background, I kind of came together with the KCK Organic Teaching Gardens. And then, you know, like, my grandmother always wanted me to be a teacher. So somehow I think my grandma was like really happy that I did this for 23 years, that I like helped teach kids about science and gardening and the whole culture behind gardening.
Yeah.
You know, when you teach about gardening, you end up teaching about everything. You know, you learn about everything, the garden. And George Washington Carver was a huge theme in all of the work that we taught, the way that he grew food, and all of the legacy that he's left behind. I took advantage of that and brought all of that into our workshops. Because I was like this strange white guy coming into their school, you know, who is that weird gay L guy, whatever, you know, it's like, you know, and in the beginning, I kind of like got hung up over that, and I ended up losing that quickly, and like going to the objective of the fact that I'm just another example of a different kind of human being to these kids, and if I show them respect, they'll show me respect. And ultimately, it ended up being this really positive experience that I will never forget. And like walking into a elementary school and having, you know, 50 kids go, "Mr. Manning!" and, you know, screaming. that is a good feeling to have. And for somebody that's not going to have kids, it was like my way of taking care of the biological urges that I have inside my own human body. We all have, to care for the next generation of students. And like, I was emceeing a show down at Lemonade Park for the Crossroads Music Fest, and I was introducing Danny Cox to perform on stage. Then he had his grandson singing with him, and then his grandson's mother was there, and then other members of his family were there. Then these kids are like going, "Wait a second, you're Mr. Manning from Quindaro Elementary." And it turns out that I ended up teaching almost all of Danny Cox's grandchildren.
Wow.
You know, and having this connection with them that I would never have had, especially in segregated Kansas City, you know, and the way that our town is chopped up. And then being in KCK was also a huge, incredible experience for me, because I love KCK. I think it's like this really honest place, you know, and working there, it just taught me so much. I learned so much. Like, I'm proud to say that, you know, Janelle Monet is from Quindaro Elementary, you know what I mean? And Flagel High School, and came up through that, and so many others too. And for me, KCK used to be like this. People used to crack jokes about it, you know, like the brunt of the joke. And I was scared to go there at first, but then after working there and being a part of the community, I love that place. I love the people of KCK. I love the school system and all of the students, and it's an incredibly diverse community. It's the Democratic stronghold of the state of Kansas. KCK. With Lawrence too, I'm sure.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm stepping away from that. So if you guys have any, if you have any jobs, or if you know of any jobs somewhere, tell me about it. I'll have to figure something out down the road.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I mean, I'm sure there's got to be something around. It seems like there's a lot of just kind of activity in terms of music and the arts in Kansas City, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, we were talking about it earlier. I mean, you don't, unless you're just out and about and can, you know, like Patrick, you know, it's hard to stay on top of everything that's going on. But I would be surprised if there's not some sort of opportunity that would be a great fit for someone like you who can step in and really probably hit the ground like running.
We'll see what happens, because the idea that I would be doing this job, it never in my wildest dreams would I think that I would be doing the job that I have done for the last 23 years. It's crazy that it actually happened that way. But and people would say, "Are you a master gardener?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a theater major." And they kind of look at me funny and laugh at it. But like, as Howie and I were talking about, I think you do theater, like the whole idea of the show must go on. That's really part of the theme of all work of theater people. Is like, we're going to get this done, and then the collaborative nature of being a theater person. You have to collaborate with other people, have to problem solve, have to make a miracle happen out of very little money. You know, they can make that magic happen. You know, and you all know about it because you do creative work, so you know what that's like.
It really is magic, isn't it? What you can, the stories you can tell with a prop and a costume and a light, and you know. Definitely.
It can. I think as long as, like, the thing that Ann Winter always told me about the radio is just be yourself. Don't make up a fake voice or a fake character to do your radio show. Be yourself. And in community radio, I think is like that. People want the authentic. They want to believe you. They want honesty. No. You know, and then all of these.
I think so.
Yeah, definitely. And then the music that's being presented, and people want it to be real. They want it to be, you know, it's not a joke. We're serious about this here. This music thing that's happening in Kansas City and Lawrence, people are serious about it. And regardless of the genre, an artist is interpreting a story and telling you have to believe it. They're an actor, you know, telling that. Some of my most incredible hip hop performances where I've seen, it's like an actor doing a monologue or delivering poetry. One of my friends is Nisha Gamby. Her son is Jamal Gamby, who was Joe Good of Sounds Good with Miles Bonny.
Yeah.
And they were like a little bit before my radio show. I played all their music on the radio show because I love them, and seeing Jamal performing, I would like cry because he was so into telling the truth of the story, the truth of the lyrics, and was so good at it and amazing, and I would just be feeling that and crying because he was believing everything he was saying. It was totally real. There's nothing fake about anything that's happening in that performance. And I think that goes across the board with genre and performance and artists who are telling their story, you know, to the audience. People want to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of like getting into music, I know that we had a Mental Death Squad track.
Yeah, right. Brandon Phillips.
And that's you know, some of what he was talking about going through with that album. I cannot remember who he was working with that kind of helped him kind of work through some of the songs and really kind of fleshed out the album. And
I'm in awe of Brandon Phillips. I don't know how much you know about him, but he and his brothers had a band called the Architects, and they were signed to a national label. And I mean, he was like dragging his little brothers into bars. They're all underage, way back in the day, and their music started evolving and becoming more pop sounding, and so he just created a whole new band called Brandon Phillips and the Condition, which is sort of like his band. He can like pretend to be Elvis Costello in a way, you know what I mean? And kind
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
and
be
more pop. But then they also have another band called Other Americans, where there's a female lead singer, and he's more backing them up. And Mensa Death Squad is kind of almost his most personal music. It's electronic, it's like electronic dance music.
Well, I liked what a lot of the stuff that he was doing, especially during COVID, where he was producing something. I'm guessing it was in his basement, but it was him. It was very, to me, it was pretty nice, good production, lights, and kind of music video quality, which was really cool, I thought.
He's kind of a musical genius. He really is. He's written so many great songs, and he's real humble about it, almost like off the cuff, about it in a way. He was one of the hardest people for me to interview on the radio because I was really in awe of him and kind of nervous about him too, because he's like real honest, and but he's had huge health issues. I think it's Crohn's is one of the things that he struggles with that have caused huge issues with his just feeling horrible, and he's had to overcome these, and his music has been a way for him to kind of deal with these health issues, because he's the kind of performer that, like, when you used to see him in the Architects days, it's like leaving it all on stage, like this rock and roller out there, sweating it all out, leaving it all on stage, this hard rock sound, and he still brings that energy to all of the music that he does. And he's a really smart, intelligent guy. His whole family's really cool. His dad was a lawyer. And I don't know much about his mom, but I just following his musical career has been fascinating for me. And the Mensa Death Squad, the album just came out, I think, but he put out these singles leading up to it.
Yeah, which has been pretty common. We're gonna play the Chin Up, Eyes Wide Open track.
I know he does a lot of work with Element Studios and Joel Nanos.
Yes.
It's one of his partners in crime.
Yes.
You guys will have to have Joel Nanos on your show sometime.
I would love to.
He's got lots of stories. Lots of stories.
Yeah, I would love to talk to Joel. I don't know that I've met him and personally met him, but yeah, a lot of people I know have worked with him, and I would love to see his studio at some point.
They're building a new studio right now. He's like a musician's producer in a lot of ways, because he used to have a band, and
yeah,
I feel like half of what I play on the radio he produced. But yeah, him and Brandon are. They've worked together a lot.
I wanna get hurt, chin up, eyes wide open. Over the ocean or down in the dirt, chin up, eyes wide open. I wanna know you to take you apart, chin up, eyes wide open. Consecrate or shatter my heart, chin up, eyes wide open. Oh, to be away.
I feel like as we talk, Mark, I mean, I just listening to you, I have to Google and search and take notes and everything just to keep up with everybody and everything that you're just again, like Nate was saying, when you're on the show, like you just know so much about the community, and it really feels good, man, to have somebody who cares like that. And I'm sure that that's the same way that garden program has been, and I hope that we all really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very excited that you were willing to come and to talk to us on the show, and I really like finding some of the stuff out about you that I wasn't aware of, some of the singing telegram stuff and things that you are involved in. It's great. I'm like I said, it's a pleasure knowing you and being able to have really these conversations with you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's really cool that I really felt like the creative community tried to make the most out of COVID-19, and the number of podcasts that popped up during the time, which is another way to try to connect people, and it helps. It really does help to have these abilities to make these connections, because we need to all know about each other, and like,
yeah.
I remember when I went to one of the first Mixmaster programs that Silly Goose Records and Lawrence and I can't remember, from Carswell and Hope, the musician that were. You don't have
not Nick, right?
Yeah, Nick
Carswell.
Yeah,
okay.
He created the Mixmaster thing, and I went to one of the very first Mixmasters in Lawrence, and I met Thalia Fani, and I was like, "Who's this force of nature?" And
she's so awesome.
I've been able to become friends with her and gain her respect, and have her on the show as much as I can, because she has so much passion, and it's people like her that encourage me a lot to keep wanting to do more. And she's like a honest, straight arrow kind of person, with her mission, with what she does.
But well, I think if we had been a little more on point, I think we've had. Howie has had the idea of having, guest hosts, and I think Fally would have been a great guest host on this episode. So we'll note that for next time, because I'm sure we'd love to have you back, and so if we do, hopefully we'll be fortunate enough that Fally can join us, and I'm sure that we'll have some really cool conversations. But she's very cool. She's very involved. And everything that she does for, to kind of get people, she takes pictures, writes articles, like she's all over the place.
She is. I remember seeing her, like she's like 6 foot something, and I remember when she was pregnant with her second child, she was still out there shooting shows. Like 9 months pregnant, and I'm like, who is this woman? I mean, she's just striking, and I love running into her. It's always a delight. She's always brutally honest with me about everything, and I really appreciate that. She's one of those people that can explain to you, like, why is this the way this is? She can tell you, oh, it's because of this, and she knows the story. She's also turned me into really good artists that I would not have known of, and she has a lot of great stories to tell too, about things in Lawrence. So, and I think she kind of represents that there used to be a Lawrence, Kansas City rivalry, and I think there might still, I think with Thalia, I think there still might be that. She still has that kind of, maybe. She's going to stick up for Lawrence against Kansas City.
Yeah, sure.
we do it different in Lawrence. She likes those kinds of stories. And I think like when I told her what the budget of Kansas City's gay pride was compared to the budget of Lawrence, she like fell off her chair. But but like I totally respect her so much, and I don't know if that rivalry exists the way it did at one time. I really see more of a coming together and like a collaboration amongst our communities, like we're together. I try to treat it that way in the radio show.
Well, we had a show just on Saturday at the Bottleneck. It was the Blacklight Animals and Dylan Guthrie's band, Low Pressure System, and Corey Phillips. And so that was kind of a mixture of KC and Lawrence, and it was a really, really cool bill. And I think we're going to try to do it again. And I hope that we get to do it in Kansas City and maybe, another time in Lawrence, another time in Kansas City, because it was really fun to play, with all those groups, enjoy the music and have that, and know that it's kind of like it's a Lawrence and Kansas City thing.
Yeah.
And it's drawing people from both places.
That's a good lineup, those bands together, I think. The Blacklight Animals, I love them. And and as a band, they've ended up becoming the backup band for like jazz when she performed.
Yes. And you had a jazz song on the playlist, did you not?
I did have a jazz song on the playlist, yeah. And she did give permission to play it too. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. The Hymn, which is a new single that she just put out in February.
Okay.
She put out an album called At the Close of a Decade that she made basically on her iPhone, and it's this incredible album. It's so soulful and beautiful. But when she plays live, Blacklight Animals are kind of like her backup band, and it works.
Yeah, I think that she did a song at the show. They had her. Yeah, they had her up there on Saturday.
They're kind of like her dap tones, or you know what I mean? They kind of like that. Yeah. Kind of do that for her. They also play a couple other female vocalists too,
which is super cool. I like that.
I do too.
I like that a lot.
Those guys are really have good spirit about them. They really do. The Blacklight Animals, and they're interested in creating a certain kind of sound. And jazz is really amazing. Her music is kind of timeless in a way, I think.
He's everything that I need.
Yeah, I'd be very curious if these were like samples or if she has if there's a band playing. I mean, obviously, if she has a live band backing her.
Yeah, this single is not off her album that she made. I think might be working more with. I know there's a keyboardist you regularly work with. I don't know how she put it all together.
My ears always perk up when people mention keyboardists. I'm like, all right, he's working with her. All right, what's up? What's going on over there?
Yeah, I
That's just how I am.
I had the chance to MC the Apocalypse Meow benefit for Midwest Music Foundation last
awesome.
November.
Yeah.
She was one of the bands that performed. We did it at the Record Bar. We didn't have a live audience. It was all being
live streamed.
Yeah, live streamed.
Yeah.
She was great. It was fabulous.
Yeah, this is really chill.
Yeah, her album At the Close of a Decade is really good. It's one of our favorite. On the radio show, we do this end of the year thing where we do it's the 120 best recordings of 2020 or 2021. And it's a 4-week special, and it's like making that list where you put one artist ahead of another, and that's the awkward thing about doing all of that. Mainly just trying to create a good radio show with a good opening song every week and a good closing song, and mixing the ratio of national into the local. And also I have a formula that I do where I try to make every playlist 50% female and 50% male, and at least 40 to 50% people of color. I try to impose that formula onto my playlist just because the only way to change it is to change it. And the music industry has been so male dominated throughout the years historically, and then radio has been segregated in so many ways. And so trying to force myself into that has been a challenge, but it ends up causing, like, for difficult decisions in that best of list at the end of the year, where some artists have like a really great album, but there's so many white guys making music in comparison to African American females or Black females. So it's just kind of, and also realizing that I'm working at a community radio station and not a commercial radio station. So we even have a greater responsibility to represent the community, represent artists that might not be played on other stations, and try to help, because that's our mission at KKFI, is to provide a voice for voices that are underrepresented in other media. That's really part of our whole mission. And so local music, Kansas City, Lawrence music, is underrepresented in our media in a huge way. Because when you think of all the radio stations that are on the dial, how many of those radio stations are playing local artists? Sad. That's really sad to find out that it's that few. And even on KKFI, we have.
I think there's a couple, like, specific programs, like 60-minute programs, but it's not a lot.
We have enough music to fill days and days and days.
Way more than that. Yeah.
And it's not just because it's local. It's good music too. And so it's like on KKFI we have 85 locally produced weekly radio shows, which is crazy.
Wow.
No other
I didn't realize that's a lot.
That's like 150.
Yeah, I didn't know that was 85.
Yeah, these are volunteers that are passionate about their thing. And then amongst those, there's a lot of music shows, but then in those music shows, many of them are playing local artists, and it's like more of them need to be. And on KKFI we have like 3 or 4. It needs to be more. And like the Bridge does a pretty good job of mixing local in, but they could do more too. I remember when the Bridge first went on the air, when they first relaunched under KCPT, they had a slogan that said, "We play more local music than anyone." And I was offended by that, because it's like, community radio, what about us?
Right.
People just forget about community radio because we don't have a huge marketing budget. We are truly a radio station that is run by the people. We are truly run by the people in the neighborhood, and have been doing it for 34 years. And it took about 10 years for these people to even get the station up on the air. 10 years.
Well, and that's another thing I want to draw attention to, hopefully, with this show is there's a fundraiser to purchase the tower, right? Is that what it is? Is it actually purchasing the tower because you have an easement on the land, and once you own the tower, you won't have to pay the rent?
We own the tower. We own our tower. We just don't own the easement. We don't own the easement to get to the tower.
Yes, that's okay, right.
But this land, there was like a people that owned this land forever, and they finally got to a stage in their lives where they got older and they wanted to sell the land. So somebody bought the land, but they're a friend of community radio too. So they are going to sell a sliver of this land that is the easement to KKFI. And that value was about $350,000. So we created a campaign, and they've raised $325,000. So the goal is almost met for to buy this land so that we can actually get to our tower. We have a trailer at the tower, and we have a second transmitter. So if our first transmitter goes down, we have a backup transmitter. There's like an air conditioner that works into this. There's like a facility there that we can actually get to now. We won't have to pay the rent on that land anymore. We'll save like $25,000 a year for our annual budget. But we're just like this little community radio station that has managed to keep alive over the last 10 years or so, has managed to save up money in the bank. So we have our annual budget, but we also have a little bit of that. This radio station has saved about $500,000 in its little bank account over the last 10 years, which I give it. That's a hard thing to do because it costs a lot of money to run a radio station. But we have a small staff and all these volunteers, and then we have a board of directors with like a working board and an active member volunteer system where people have to volunteer so many hours to be a part of that. If you have a radio show, you have to also volunteer for the station, like a community grocery store. If you help stock the shelves, you can get a discount on your groceries, kind of thing. But it really is for the love of the community. It's really mission based. If all of us at the station put the mission first, it usually works out better in the long run. Because the whole business of radio is kind of crazy, and it's been a really interesting experience, though. There's so many stories about KKFI also that we could share sometime with you.
Yeah, that sounds like another pod, maybe.
Yeah. It's like a whole. Well, and I recently did a show where it was like our birthday of KKFI, so I brought in different people to tell different parts of the story. And it's controversial because some people don't want to have some of the stories be told, because they're not out of that. But they're part of the struggle of what it takes to keep an independent community progressive voice alive on the airwaves, because there isn't a lot of that on the airwaves, actually.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And the airwaves belong to the people. They're our airwaves.
Public airwaves, yep.
Our government are the ones that divide it all up and license this off to these multi-billionaires and whatnot, and who try to sell stuff to. We're not selling things on KKFI. It's a It's a non-profit corporation, so it's always weird when we give out guest instructions and people are like, "How can I talk about my album? I can't give a price." And I'm like, "Give everything you want, but just don't tell the price." You know what I mean?
Right.
Tell people where they can find this, what's going to be in the show. We're so brainwashed by commercialism that we don't even know how to communicate without being commercial, It's you know what I mean? It's crazy that way.
I sometimes I feel like you're like I get my album $7. I feel guilty for saying it's $7. I feel like I should be like, but I understand.
That hasn't even. When did Bandcamp set that recommendation? That there's no inflation in there. I mean, everything else has gone up, but Bandcamp's still saying $7.
Yeah.
Your music is worth something.
Don't feel guilty about that.
Yeah, but you get where I'm coming from, though.
I do,
right?
I do.
Yeah.
It's so weird because there's so much of a perception also, and when we used to do Big Bang shows, when we started charging $5 to get in the door, our audience became more diverse. It's really weird. The audience became so much better. They're a much better audience. It's like people wanted to be invested in something. There's another way of being invested. And when something's free, like in theater, like the worst audiences ever was when somebody bought the whole house and gave it as a gift. So 250 people had comp tickets. That's always the worst audience you can ever have. Those people, they're not going to clap as hard or appreciate it as much. There's just something to be said for people paying for what they're getting, and even though that's a tricky business, you can make it fair for everybody, and there can be ways to work around people that can't afford it, but and plus our artists, we ask so much from artists just are not compensated for what they do in comparison to other things that we throw our money at, and it's just a sin, it's just horrible that it's that way, because music actually saves people's lives, and music actually makes people healthy and feel connected, and it's medicinal. It really is, and it's part of our tribe.
It's therapeutic. It's very therapeutic.
It goes to the very essence of our beginning as people, and musicians should be all taken care of. That's why, like, the Midwest Music Foundation, as a nonprofit organization, I'm saying support them wholeheartedly always, because they're doing the work of angels to help provide safeguards to musicians who may not have health care, or just need help paying the rent that month, or whatever it might be. And I'm so proud of our community for things like the Midwest Music Foundation. And like Abigail Henderson, who started that organization, is someone who taught me how to do a radio show. I mean, she was one of those people that was coming on the radio show and telling me, we like to think of this as our radio show. And I'm like, oh, you do? Oh, okay, you do. I realized that was like really great thing. And I took on her mission also. I started following her to try to do my radio show more like she would want me to do it, and learning from the music community. And being in the theater community, I had gotten used to the way that community operates. And when I got involved in the music community, I didn't expect to be part of the music community. I started doing this radio show, and little by little, the music community brought me in. And they're the ones that said, you're part of us, And I hadn't felt that way in the theater community. I felt so much more accepted for being myself, my true, authentic self. I felt more accepted as a gay man in the music community than I did in the theater community. Strangely enough.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, like Amy Farrand. I don't know if you know Amy Farrand, but she's a veteran of the music scene and a really good friend of mine. And she'll tell you the same thing. As a lesbian woman, she's always felt more accepted in the music community than in the gay community. And the music community has all been about, it doesn't matter if you're gay. You know what I mean? If you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, whatever, that's not ever really what matters. It's what do you sound like,
Yeah.
What's your music?
Really? I mean, in a larger sense too, that I don't think that even matters, as a person. Like, who are you as a person?
Right.
Okay, so you're a musician. What do you sound like? Do I like your music or not? But like, even if I don't, like, are you cool? I mean, that's all. That's. I think. I mean, to me, it boils down to, like, is this person cool?
Correct.
If they're not, then like, that's cool. We don't have to hang out, but
Yes.
But yeah, it's like I don't have to listen to your music because I don't necessarily like it. Howie, do you want to play some more music?
I'm really sorry that the Ghost Walk song didn't work out because I
could not find that in any other bots. Like I searched for it, and the list that came up, that was not a part of it.
That Diedrich Moore, I don't know if you know Diedrich, but Monta at Odds is his band that he started with his brother. And watching that band evolve over the years has been fascinating to me. And they just keep getting better, I think. And they made this album with your friend doing all the vocals. And then when it came time to do the album live, I think we talked about this, Nate. When it came time to do the album live, our friend was in New York and couldn't do it or away. Mikkel Shapiro came in, learned all the songs, and she became part of the band. And it's just a great addition. And then recently, Ken Jankowski of the Republic Tigers, he's on the same music label as Monta Odds. Republic Tigers and Monta Odds are on the Record Machine. And he did a remix of one of their tracks. And then through that experience, he became a member of Monta Odds. And Christoph Nemeth of Emmeline Twist, he now is playing guitar with Monta Odds. And there's this collaborative spirit with these guys in this band. And
I'm gonna make a little note then. Let me see about the remix.
Man, my notes are ridiculous.
It's really good. It's really good. And then so Ken Jankowski, the Republic Tigers were big 10 years ago. I mean, they were on David Letterman.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
And but their label sat on this record for 7 years, and it never got released. And so Nathan Roosh of the Record Machine was able to somehow get this and release it through the Record Machine, and it's a great album. It's the bridge has played almost every song on the radio as a single, and Ken doesn't have a band anymore. So when the Republic Tigers play out, he's always scrambling to find people to be in his band. Well, now it's Monta Odds that become the Republic Tigers. I mean, everybody in that configuration becomes the Republic Tigers for Ken singing lead. And then when they're Monta Odds, he's part of Monta Odds. And Static Phantoms is Christoph Nemeth and Diedrich Moore together, just the two of them collaborating.
Okay.
And both of them have this sort of 80s pop, new wave kind of thing in their backgrounds, that they both love. And so they kind of bring that into this project that they're doing that is now Static Phantom. So they only have a couple songs out, and I'm not sure how many places they're at, but I think Diedrich sent me one of them, and I think I found one on Bandcamp the other way. But you'll have to have him on the show sometime, just because there's so many. Just the whole development of that band and the collaborative nature of so many people have been in that band over the years with those guys, and they're all such nice folk, good people.
If you have something, Nate, maybe we can go out on it.
Yeah, I had the Faith Maddox track.
Sweet, that'd be great.
We had her on the show, and we were really excited for that record to come out. And I really like it. This is Bloody Maple.
Yeah, I really like it too.
But her trio sounds really good.
Have you seen her live?
I haven't seen her live. I've seen videos of it.
He's going to be doing a live show somewhere in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I believe.
just getting sicker, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, the drummer that she was talking about, you can hear like kind of the math rock influence.
Joel Martin works with her in recording, right?
I think so, yeah.
He does a lot of. He's a lot in a lot of places.
I don't know myself.
Her voice sounds hard to tell that she's 21 years old, right? Her voice.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's what we discussed that too.
Her guitar work too, frankly.
Yeah. I think it was like the very first song we even listened to. I was like, I can't believe this, because it was a song that she recorded when she was like 17 or 18. It's like this is unbelievable. Like so hard to believe this is. You're 17 or 18 recording this. You sound, fully grown, like just the expression in her voice and everything.
Yeah, I think she's just so. She has such a strong sense of her own artistic voice, her own uniqueness.
Yeah.
And she's so brave about just leaning into that, and I think, man, I was 21 and much later, and even still, that it scares me maybe a little bit to get that deep into my own thing, whatever that is. But she just goes right to the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, shall we leave it there for now?
I think we're good.
I think that's a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, we could get into, but Mark, like I can't thank you enough for coming and talking. This is such a fun conversation with you.
Absolutely.
Pleasure. Thanks for asking. Just please know that you guys are all welcome on the radio show anytime. And I just tell people, just don't be shy about asking to come on the show, because I'll try to make room for you. And I think we have about 150 to 200 guests on every year on the show. And I think that's what makes our show more special, is we're able to have these artists on the radio talking about their work and being able to show the other larger community what we have. But thank you very much. I appreciate being with you all tonight. It's been a pleasure, and making
absolutely.
I'm a fellow Doane graduate here on the.
We've got an in now.
Yeah.
Howie's the one person I haven't been able to interview on the radio, so I don't know as much about you as the other people on this panel.
Oh, well, I tell you what, Mark, since you extended the invitation, maybe, so I've got a solo album I'm working on.
Yay!
So maybe I'll share a little bit of that with you, and we'll see if we can figure something out. Kind of fall, winter, it's a ways off, but.
Sure, yeah.
Well, and Howie runs his own record label too. He's got Mr. Furious Records. Like he, man, it's
how many albums, Howie?
I'd have to high 60s, something like that.
Wow. I've been wanting to do a radio show where I have like 3 or 4 independent label people from Kansas City, just having a roundtable conversation, and like every 10 minutes playing a track, that's representative of that label. But that would be fun to do also. If you'd ever want to do that.
That'd be amazing.
Hit up Sean.
This is your show. We're trying to wrap up your show.
Yeah, hit up Approach for that too, Mark. Hit up Approach. I'm sure he would love to do that.
Have Sean on.
Yeah, I've never ever had Sean on the show, so he's another
Really?
person that yeah, it's
Wow. Okay.
it's never. I've played him on the show. He's also someone that Fally has like told me so many stories about,
Yeah.
and helped me learn more about. And then my friend Nisha, of course, also has taught me a lot. But yeah, I'll have to do that. Definitely.
Awesome. Thanks again, Mark. It's been a long play listening party.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Yeah, we appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Keep doing all the good work you guys are doing.